Hello, my name is Eric, a teacher at the Asian International School, and today I'll be teaching you about weather. Today's lesson comes from your book, Unit 3.3. If you don't have your book, don't worry, all of the information will be in this video clip for you. You will need a notebook and a pen, so please have one ready. Before we get to the book, let's answer this question. How does the weather affect us? Well, I have some images to get us thinking. So what's happening in this image? We can see people are flying their kites, and they rely on the weather in order to do that activity. In this image, we can see the wind is too strong, and it has blown this truck over, creating a big disaster. In this image, we can see a situation that may be familiar to us. It's been raining a lot and the streets are flooded. And finally, in this image, we can see there has been very dry weather for a very long time, and the plants cannot grow, and the animals unfortunately have died. So let's look at our goals for today's lesson. We want to know what factors affect the weather. You should be able to understand how the physical landscape affects weather, and be able to interpret different kinds of weather maps. So let's begin. So we're going to start by using the UK as our example. So what is weather? Weather means the state of the atmosphere. Is it warm, wet, windy? So look at this weather map. This is for a day in October, and using the key beside the map, you can say that around A that day, A is up here, it was quite cloudy and wet, but there was some sunshine. So the symbol on the map at A, we can see a cloud with some rain and a sun. So it was quite cloudy and wet, but there was some sunshine. The temperature was around 6 degrees Celsius. So this number on the map, if we look at the key, it tells us the temperature. Next, there was a southwest wind. It blew from the southwest. So the number in the circle tells us the speed of the wind. In the UK, they use miles per hour. The arrow shows us the direction. When we talk about the direction of the wind, we always talk about the direction the wind is blowing from. So this wind is blowing from the southwest. So it is a southwest wind. As I said, the UK uses miles per hour, and 1 mile is equal roughly to 1.6 kilometers. Now let's look at a map of Vietnam. Again, the numbers on the map show us the temperature in Celsius. The circles with the arrows show us wind speed. Here I've used kilometers per hour. And the arrow shows us the wind direction. Remember, we talk about the direction the wind is blowing from. Now, on the map, there are many different kinds of weather symbols. They should be easy to understand, but let's just make sure before we continue. The sun, this means sunny and dry weather. A white cloud, this means cloudy weather. There is light cloud. The dark cloud means cloudy weather, but heavy cloud. When we see a cloud and a sun together, this means cloudy weather with some sunny spells. The white cloud indicates light cloud. Sunny spells. A spell means a short period of time. So it will mostly be cloudy, but there will be some sunny moments. Again, a dark cloud means heavy cloud. So here we have heavy cloud with some sunny spells. A white cloud with raindrops means light rain. The dark cloud with raindrops means heavy rain. And the dark cloud with thunderbolts means stormy weather. There will be thunderstorms. So, what was the weather like in Hanoi on this day? So look at the red star on the map showing where Hanoi is. What can we say about the weather up there? Well, there was some light cloud with sunny spells. The temperature was around 21 degrees Celsius. And there was a north wind blowing at 32 kilometers per hour. So now your turn. What was the weather like in Ho Chi Minh City on this day? So pause the video for around 2 minutes or however long you need and write down your answer. Have you finished? Okay, let's check your answer. Your answer should have some of the same details, but you might use different phrases. It was a sunny and dry day. The temperature was around 34 degrees. There was an east wind blowing at 15 kilometers per hour. Did you get all of that information? So why is the weather different in certain places? Why is it usually colder in Sapa than in Hanoi? Why is it often colder in Hanoi than in Ho Chi Minh City? Why does Pleiku get more rain than Phan Thiet? Well, although the weather changes day to day, there are certain factors that affect the patterns. Some places are usually colder, warmer, wetter, and drier than others. Can you think about what those factors are? What factors affect the weather? Well, let's find out. So here we will use the UK as an example again. You will need your notebook to take notes as we read. So let's start at number 1. The north is usually colder than the south, since it's further from the equator. Further from the equator, we're talking about latitude, or distance from the equator. It's warmer closer to the equator, and colder closer to the North and the South Pole. The word latitude you studied in Unit 2.10. Latitude refers to the lines that go around the Earth side by side. The lines that are closer to the equator will be warmer, and the lines closer to the pole will be colder. Number 2, it's colder on high land. Altitude. Altitude means the height above sea level. So as we go uphill or up a mountain, the air gets colder. It's also usually wetter on higher land. Number 3, the south is warmest since it's nearest to the equator. So this again is talking about latitude. And number 4, the west coast is warmer than the east coast in winter. That's because it's warmed by a warm ocean current called the North Atlantic Drift. So this warm sea current flows up along the coast and it warms the air above it, bringing warm weather. So some ocean currents are warm and some are cold, and they affect the air temperature above them. So make sure you copy all of those notes into your notebook before we move on. Now there are some further factors that affect the weather. Another factor is distance from the sea. Places by the sea or along the coast have a milder climate. That means they are not as hot in summer or as cold in winter as places in the middle of continents. Think about the center of Australia. It's very, very hot. Also think about places like central Russia, which is very, very cold. Also, there is more rain and usually stronger wind along the coast. Another factor is wind direction. Wind blowing from a hot or a cold place will bring warm or cold air. A wind blowing over an ocean will bring moist air, which will bring a lot of rain. Have a look at this map showing the average annual rainfall in the UK. The dark blue areas are areas that receive more rain. We can look at the key and it shows us how many millimeters of rainfall each area receives. The light blue areas receive the least amount of rain. So overall, the dark blue areas receive more rain, and the diagram on the left explains why. So let's follow numbers 1 to 5. Number 1, high ground forces the warm, moist air to rise. 2, as the water vapor cools and condenses, clouds form and it rains. 3, the rain falls on the windward side of the hill. This is the side of the hill that's facing the wind. Number 4, the opposite side of the hill is called the leeward side, and this stays quite dry. 5, the dry area on the leeward side is called the rain shadow. So this explains why high land receives more rainfall. As the air rises, it cools, the water vapor condenses, it makes clouds, and it rains. In our diagram, it shows the prevailing wind. Prevailing wind means the direction the wind usually blows from in a region. The UK's prevailing wind is from the southwest. So that wind is blowing across the Atlantic Ocean. It brings a lot of moist air. It's picking up water vapor as it blows across the ocean. And then when it reaches the west coast of Britain, it meets a lot of mountains. The air is forced to rise, where it cools and condenses, and it rains heavily on those mountains along the west coast. So look at the rainfall map. Which place, A, B, C, or D, is the wettest, and which is the driest? So pause the video for a moment until you find your answer. Okay, you should have spotted that D is the wettest. We see D is dark blue, and according to our key below, it receives an average of 2,400 millimeters of rain per year. A is the driest. It receives an average of 600 millimeters per year. Here we can compare a map showing which areas of the UK have the highest mountains and which have flat land. We can see that D on our map is up in the mountains, so it receives a lot of rain. A is very flat land, so it receives much less rain. So, to review the main points of our lesson, the main factors that affect weather are latitude. It's warmer closer to the equator. Altitude. It's colder and wetter on high land. Ocean currents. Warm currents warm the air. Cold currents cool the air. Distance from the sea. Weather is milder at the coast. Milder means less extreme. It's not as hot and it's not as cold as other places. Wind direction. Winds blowing from dry places bring dry weather. Winds blowing from cold places bring cold weather. When we talk about wind direction, we talk about where it is blowing from. For example, a north wind is blowing from north to south. Here is some of the key vocabulary from today's lesson. Prevailing wind, the usual direction of the wind. In the UK, the prevailing wind is a southwest wind. It usually blows from the southwest. Altitude. This means the height of the land above sea level. Spell. A short period of time. Example, rainy with sunny spells. Windward. The side of a hill or a mountain facing the wind. The windward side receives the most rain. Leeward. The side of a hill or a mountain facing away from the wind. It receives less rain. Rain shadow. The drier side of a hill. It's on the leeward side. So that is the end of today's lesson. Thank you for watching, and you'll see me again in next week's video. Have a nice day. Goodbye.